I spoke with Joe Manganiello about his new brand Death Saves and how it brings back an old school style to D&D.
I started Death Saves because I noticed that there was a hole in the marketplace in terms of D&D apparel where things would have existed that I would really want to wear. I mean, that's no disrespect to anyone else. It just, when I looked at D&D apparel, it just wasn't necessarily my style. So I wanted to start this line to make things that even if I didn't know what Dungeons and Dragons was, I could walk into a store. I would imagine that a kid would walk into a store and say, I want to wear that, that's cool. Because in my brain, I'm always thinking about how this can affect the mainstream. Because it's become such a niche community. And now it's expanding, and there's a renaissance in the game lately. But I think what happened in the 80s, the Satanic Panic, I think this reputation, if you look at that old 1986 Ed Bradley interview, where he's basically coercing parents of, whose children were committed suicide or murders, or, the guy who got lost in the steam tunnels in Michigan State. All this was blamed on Dungeons and Dragons for some bizarre reason. And then, 60 Minutes never apologized for it. That kid in the steam tunnel showed back up. It had nothing to do with Dungeons and Dragons. He was feeling pressure because of college. So it caught this bad rap. And now a couple of things happened out of that. One, there were these massive book burnings. Like the communities banded together and took all the Dungeons and Dragons books and burned them, on the pyre. And the other thing that happened was Dungeons and Dragons tripled or quadrupled in popularity during that time. So there was a real curiosity about what was going on with this game, but it was demonized in a certain way. And what that did for me was it wound up stunting, I think, the growth of the game. And I think what happened was people got really nervous in the decades between the 80s and between now. They got nervous to portray the game in any way other than some it got fluffy, and I think that there was a certain amount of it, or fluffy, or labeled as weird, and I think that I think people were afraid of voicing their how much they liked Dungeons and Dragons, and so for me, I wanted to start the Death Saves line because I wanted to lean back into everything that was ostracized, everything that was vilified in the 80s. I wanted to, not that I wanted to put Satan back into Dungeons and Dragons, but I wanted to make it okay to have a Death Knight look like a Death Knight. Yeah. I love skulls and fire and dragons, and that's the whole palette of Dungeons and Dragons, but yet you rarely see that full palette utilized. And so I went and I spoke to the folks at Wizards, and they were kind enough to allow me access to the entire pantheon of D&D characters and creatures, and so one by one we're going to be going through D&D and reimagining it as if no one ever got scared away during the 80s.
Like it's as if it had been left alone.
If it had been left alone, we're going right back into it. And I think that's been a lot of my mission for the past couple of years. I was a kid in high school who used to beat up the bullies. I played sports with the bullies. And when I saw the bullies picking on my friends who were artistic, because I was an artist who played sports, I would go threaten those bullies. You touch that kid again, you're gonna have to fight me. I was that guy. So there's still a bit of that in my personality, and that's a big part of my DNA. And there's something about this community of D&D that I just feel like that's still my job.
Thank you, Joe, for sitting down with me and talking about Death Saves on D&D Beyond. I am your host, Todd Kenrick. Thank you for watching.